There is a seemingly endless discussion about power meters in our sport. Specifically in competitive circles, the talk is always of data, numbers, watts, you name it. But what happens if you don't have a power meter?
Well, fear not, because there are other ways that you can progress your training without using a power meter. And actually, some individuals find there are more benefits.
Yeah, don't get us wrong, power meters are a fantastic tool to improve your performance on the bike. But some of the sport's greatest ever riders in the world actually raced and trained without a power meter, which means you can too. So here are our top tips for what to do without one.
Listen close. It has to be said, power meters are a great way to track your progress. They're very specific when it comes to finding out your numbers, but they're not necessary when it comes to improving your fitness and improving your performance on the bike.
You might think that every pro cyclist has a power meter and that you need one to go pro, but that is not true. Many racers, in fact, don't actually use a power meter when they're training, prefer to go off field, and often they don't actually look at the numbers when they're racing if they do have one.
No, it's worth remembering that cycling has been around a lot longer than all of our gadgets.
Yeah, and I think in terms of the riders who do use a power meter in races, that isn't something they're looking at the whole time when they're racing. Quite often they won't look at it at all and they'll turn the power screen off on their head unit. It's more so that the coaches can have the data, look back on that ride and then monitor the athlete's progress throughout time.
Yeah, it has to be said actually, I've done some of my best races when I didn't have power, so I had no choice but to go dataless. And I actually found like I performed pretty well.
Yeah, I agree. I think sometimes if you're trying to push yourself beyond the limits that you ever thought was possible, it's best not to define yourself by a number on a screen.
Absolutely. If you did have a power meter, all your data will be stored on a bike computer like this one or at home on your computer. But why not do the same when you don't have a computer? And what I mean by that is by putting notes in your phone or on a pad of paper at home. And this basically can consist of times on climbs or times on segments, how you felt during that day. And in the future, you can look back at that and follow your progression and how you've improved. Now that doesn't have to just stick to the training aspect, that can also chuck in food diary, how you slept. The more information you put down on paper, the better understanding you will have of your performance.
Our first way to improve your training without a power meter is the rate of perceived exertion. Now, you might have heard us talk about RPE in some of our recent training videos. Basically, it's a really easy and simple to follow scoring system on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the hardest possible effort you could ever do and 1 being your easiest ride, just spinning gently out on the roads. RPE can be a little bit difficult to get used to sometimes, and you need to understand where your body limits lie. Just as your power data will change as you progress your training, so will your RPE numbers. Now, you can look to introduce this quite easily into your rides, even if you're doing an intense session or maybe an active recovery session. So, for example, a good way of explaining how a session would be on the RPE scale if it was prescribed by a coach, something like this. So you could be prescribed a 2-hour ride at 4 out of 10 on the effort scale, but within that ride, you might have 3 by 10-minute intervals at 7 out of 10. So those 10 minutes you have to push yourself a bit harder and feel the workload a bit more. Use RPE as an extra way of noting in your training diary how you found each session. It can be a great way of keeping track of how hard you found each specific ride over time, and it's perfect to look back on to get a sense of how hard you're training at each specific moment.
Using the terrain and the roads is a great way to track your training and progress too.
Yeah, maybe find yourself a local climb, a hill that you can really push yourself up, time yourself from bottom to top, and if you don't want to go the whole way up, want to go halfway up, find a landmark that you can race towards.
Yeah, now all you need is a basic stopwatch on your bike computer or even your watch, and that way you've basically got your own test lap on your doorstep.
Yeah, but if you don't have a stopwatch, then don't worry. You could maybe push yourself up that climb in a certain gear, and then on a following day's ride, see if you can get up it faster in a harder gear.
Yeah, I mean, I always used to love going out on a loops, but you don't really have to go out on a loop when you head out on your bike, do you?
No, you don't. I did all my intervals on the same climb, actually, same stretch of road. say for example I had 2 by 10 minute efforts to do, I'd always try and repeat it on a climb, turn around at the top, go to the bottom and do it all again. And I found if I kept the conditions the same from day to day, I could really judge how I was feeling on different rides based on my perceived exertion, really.
Yeah, and it's always good to motivate yourself that way too, because you can go up it once, and then when you go to the second ride, go up it a second time, you can push yourself that bit harder to make it past the landmark you might not have made the last time up.
If you don't want to splash out on a power meter, you could opt for a heart rate strap for a fraction of the price. Most heart rate straps these days, like the Wahoo Ticker, which we use, are Bluetooth and ANT Plus compatible, meaning you can use them with a variety of different bike computers and smartphones. Using a heart rate strap is a great tool to track and monitor your training with.
Yeah, but you want to use your heart rate strap effectively, and to do this, you want to get some heart rate zones done on your lactate threshold. Now, we have a whole video dedicated to helping you find your zone, so make sure you head over there to check it out.
Yeah, using a heart rate strap is a great way to understand the different intensities that you can train at, and also understand how your body responds to this. Using a simple trial and error approach to training with a heart rate monitor is a great way of understanding how hard you can push yourself and see where you can get your heart rate to.
Don't be afraid about entering a competition or a race. Now, these are great ways to build your fitness. Now, it could be a time trial or a local club event. This will help you learn position on the bike, position in a peloton or a bunch, but it'll also give you race tactics that numbers from a bike computer ever could.
Yeah, everyone has to start somewhere, so if you are apprehensive about starting racing, our best advice would be to get in touch with a local cycling club. They'll be able to point you in the right direction, because there are really plenty of races out there to try, from beginner races to 100 plus fields for experienced riders.
Yeah, now don't forget, you can use these events for training. You don't have to focus on winning. You can use different aspects of that race to put in to motivate yourself. For example, I used to love doing multiple events during the week, and each event I used to maybe try and stick in the bunch, or try and make the halfway point, try and get a top 10, try and attack in the first couple of Ks. All these different aspects will help motivate yourself to push that little bit harder.
Yeah, and keep implementing all these pieces of advice, and you'll quite quickly realise that you're progressing your riding way further than you thought was possible. So those are some of the ways to progress your training without a power meter. If we've missed anything, please let us know in the comments section below. How do you monitor your training if you don't have a power meter?
Yeah, go out and try the different ways. Let us know how you get on, and we'll see you in the next video. But before we do so, make sure you hit that thumbs up button.
Thanks for watching, everyone.
Take care.